Today on the Audio Hotline, I'm going to be reviewing this thing that's making my shirt sag. This is known as the MoveLink M2 by Godox. Not to be confused with the Motu M2 or Rode M2, it's the MoveLink M2. Honestly, the first thing that I want to talk about real quick is the fact that wireless lav systems like this have become insanely popular. I assume they're popular with consumers, but all I can say for sure is that every audio company under the freaking sun is making their own version of this. And even some companies that didn't even make anything before or exist before just came out and made something like this. This is gonna sound like a slight brag, but I honestly don't mean for it to, because it's more of a curse, honestly. My email is just riddled with companies that want me to review their wireless lav system. It's like herpes. Everyone's got it, but it doesn't mean I want it. With that being said, you're probably asking yourself the question, well, why are you reviewing one at all then? But it's actually just for the fact that I love Godox. I'm using a Godox light right now. One of the first lights I ever got was from Godox. I use a couple UL150s. And the reason that I chose that light and even chose it over the Aperture 120D Mark II that I had was the fact that it's completely silent. It doesn't have a fan in it, which is obviously perfect for someone like me, an audio channel. So when I saw Godox in my email, I was like, hey, I like you guys. So I decided to take on the MoveLink M2. So curiosity got the best of me. I said yes, I'd do it. But even though I said that I would review this, they didn't ask me to say anything good about it. They didn't ask for a particular kind of review. They just asked for an honest one. But today I'll take you through what comes with the Godox MoveLink M2. I'll take you through the specs, the features, we'll do a range test, we'll do a bunch of different sound tests, but I will also do a quick sound comparison between the Rode Wireless Go, the original one, not the 2, and the Hollyland Lark150. And I may even just sprinkle in some other little surprises. But before we get started, let's get mic'd wirelessly. Welcome all audio and video nerds to the Audio Hotline, and as I said before, we're going to be talking about the Godox MoveLink M2. Right now I've kind of set up a shot where the camera's quite a bit further away from me than usual. I wanted to do that just because I feel like a lot of people will probably use this in this type of way, kind of more of like an interview setup where you're using more of a telephoto lens. Right now I'm using an 85mm f1.4. This lens compression is probably making me look like I've gained like 69 pounds at least. You know, that's the funny thing about lens compression. It can make you feel either really good about yourself or really terrible, so cool. And right now I'm actually just using the lav mic that came with the MoveLink M2. I've got it plugged into the transmitter right on top here, which bypasses the actual microphone on the transmitter. And I just have the lav mic taped onto my chest with this double-sided tape that I got from ProGaff. You want me to lift up my shirt, you freaking sicko. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. Right now it doesn't have the foam windscreen on since it is under my shirt. But this is one of the really nice things about having a wireless lav system is the lav is gonna follow you wherever you go. You don't have to carry around a mic stand or boom arm or anything like that. Wherever you're going to be speaking or whoever is on camera speaking, they can just go wherever they need to and they're set up. Now me personally, I do kind of tend to prefer the shotgun microphone or the small diaphragm condenser microphone and booming it above the person speaking, but that's just my personal preference. I understand and love the convenience of a wireless lav system. But we'll do a lot of different sound comparisons between the microphone in the transmitter and the lavalier microphone here in a little bit. But first let's go ahead and talk about what comes with the Godox MoveLink M2 wireless lav system. The Godox MoveLink M2 comes with two MoveLink TX transmitters, one MoveLink RX receiver, a fluffy furry little wind cap for each of the transmitters, two omnidirectional lavalier microphones, one 3.5mm TRS to TRS cable, a 3.5mm TRS to TRRS cable, three USB-C cables, a MoveLink charging case, a wrist strap, and a few magnetic sheets for the transmitters, as well as some documentation. Well, those are the accessories. So, yeah. Now that we've talked about the accessories, I do want to let you know that there are a couple different kits that you can get that are the MoveLink M2. One of them does not include the charging case, one does include the charging case, and one does include the little interview stick. Shit. The interview stick from Godox. As you can tell, they didn't send me theirs, but that's fine. No problem. But I think overall everything feels pretty good. I will say when it comes to build quality, I do think the Rode Wireless Go and the Go 2 and the Hollyland Lark150 kind of beat the Godox out a little bit. But do keep in mind that the Rode Wireless Go 2, which includes 2 transmitters like this, and the Hollyland Lark150 are quite a bit more money. The MoveLink M2 comes in at $200, while the Wireless Go 2 comes in at $300, and the Lark150, I believe, is $280. So I do think for the price, the build quality is on par. What do you think, Blue? He doesn't give a shit. But all the cables and the furry little windscreens and everything, they feel really premium. I will say the lav mics do feel a little cheap. But now that we've talked about the accessories, let's go ahead and move on to the specs. I'm just going to briefly go through the specs. I will have them all up on the screen if you do want to read through them. First, let's go ahead and talk about the specs associated with the receiver. The receiver has a 3.5mm TRS simulated output, an equivalent input noise level of 21.8 dBA, a frequency range of 50 Hz to 20 kHz, a signal-to-noise ratio of 70 decibels or higher, a dynamic range for the microphone preamplifier of 100 dBA, a working range of 50 meters, that is line of sight, a built-in lithium battery, approximately 6 hours of working time, a 300 milliamp hour battery, a transmission type of 2.4 gigahertz, a sound pickup mode that is omnidirectional, a working environment temperature of -10 to 50 degrees Celsius, and a weight of 27 grams. Now when it comes to the microphone in the transmitter, it has a sensitivity of -32 decibels, a max SPL of 120 decibels, and it also has a simulated input that is a 3.5mm TRS lavalier mic. Sadly, I was not able to find any specs on the lavalier microphones that were included. If I find any additional specs, I'll put them down in the description. Well, now that we just nerded out and talked about them nasty little specs, now let's go ahead and talk about the features of the MoveLink M2. Starting with the transmitters, on top is where you will find your 3.5mm TRS input. That is where you can plug in your 3.5mm compatible microphone, much like the lavalier microphones included with this setup. Next to that, you will find the microphone that is built into the transmitter. On the front of the transmitter, there is a screen. On this screen, it will give you a level indicator. It will tell you whether your microphone is muted or not. It will tell you whether you are using transmitter A or B, whether it is paired, which is the little interlocking chain looking thing. And then there is a battery life indication too. There is also a little light on the front of this, and when it is blue, it does mean it is paired properly. And when it's red, it means it is not paired. If you turn the transmitter to the left, you will find your power button, which you do need to hold down a few seconds when starting. And then underneath that, you will find your mute button. On the right side of the transmitter is the pair button. If your receiver and transmitter do not pair automatically, you hold that button down on both of them and then they will pair. Underneath that is a USB-C port, and that's where you can charge this transmitter if you do not use the charging case. On the back of this, there is a clip that you can clip onto your shirt, pants, whatever you want to do. It does also fit in the hot shoe of a camera, which is the main purpose of the one on the receiver. And speaking of the receiver, let's go ahead and talk about some of the features on it. On top of the receiver, you will see a little camera icon next to an input jack. That is a TRS input jack, and that's where you'll put the 3.5mm cable that either plugs into your phone or your camera. Next to that, there is also a 3.5mm headphone jack. On the front of the receiver, you do have another screen. This one shows you not only information about the receiver, but also about the transmitters. This will show you the battery life of both transmitters, as well as the battery life of the receiver. It will also show you if A and B have a signal, and if they are paired. In the top middle, will show you whether it's in stereo or mono mode. And to change that, you short press the pair button on the right side, and there's a little MS label under that. It'll also show you the level that you have each transmitter set at. In order to change the level, it'll be on the left side. If you simply just press the plus or minus, it'll change both of the transmitters' levels. But above that, you will see the power button, and underneath that, it will have an A and B label. If you short press the power button, it will switch between A and B transmitters, and that's how you can change the level more specifically on each of them. And speaking of the power button, you will want to press it for a few seconds to turn it on. And on the right side of the receiver, it's the same as the transmitter. It's just the pair button. If you hold it down for a few seconds, it'll pair with the transmitter. Then underneath that, you do have the optional USB-C charging port. And on the back, you do have the clip that will fit in a hot shoe or cold shoe mount. Now, when it comes to the cables included, one of the ends is TRRS on the red cable, and that's the end that you'll need to use if you are going to plug this into your phone. Now, a really great feature of the MoveLink M2 is its ability to record either mono or stereo. One of the things that I love to do is kind of have a backup recording happening. So for instance, I have one transmitter right here, and then I actually have a transmitter plugged into a microphone right up here that's boomed overhead. So as you can see, I do have this recording with this microphone, and right now I'm actually just using the lav mic that's on my shirt. This is a really great way of having a backup recording, but it is also just really nice to be able to record two separate things at once. So when you are in mono mode on the M2, it will combine the signal of the two transmitters if they are on, which I don't really think is very desirable. It would be kind of cool if it could just record automatically into mono if you're only using one transmitter, and then automatically go to stereo if you're using both. Because then when you're in stereo and you're using both, essentially one transmitter is on the right side of the channel while the other is on the left. And then in post, you can just go in, separate the tracks by telling it to fill the left side with the right, and to fill the right side with the left. It's a super easy thing to do in post, it's not a big deal, but I do think that if it did have that auto detect between mono and stereo, it would be great. But in order to switch between mono and stereo, all you do is just short press the pair button on the receiver. Well, now that we've gone through all the fluff, we've gotten all the information out there, now we get to do some fun stuff. Some tests. Now I'm going to do quite a few different little tests. If you're confused as to what the hell I'm doing, don't worry, I'll have it labeled down here in the lower third. Also, you can navigate through the timestamps and find what tests you want to listen to. But let's go ahead and jump in and do some tests. If you get really close to the microphone in the transmitter and give it a little sniff, it smells kind of like Home Depot, like a hardware store, wood place. Now if you get really close to the provided lav mic, here is how it's going to sound. Since most people are going to have these microphones close to their mouth and they're going to be pushing plosives into it, I'm not too concerned about doing a plosive test, but we'll just briefly do one where I hold the microphones in the middle of my chest. Peter Piper picked a patch of pickled peanuts is. Peter Piper picked a patch of pickled peanuts is. Peter Piper picked a patch of pickled peanuts is. Peter Piper picked a patch of pickled peanuts is. Now let's say you're going to be moving stuff around while you have the microphone on you. Here's how that stuff is going to sound if I type on a keyboard, change a lens, or change the settings on my camera. You know, stuff like that. Stuff that obviously everyone's going to do. Here's the same test with the transmitter when I'm typing. You know, when I'm changing lenses, messing around with my camera, doing stuff like that. You know, the huge. Now just for the hell of it, we'll do a little bit of a distance test. Here I'm about a foot away from the transmitter, and now I'm about 3 feet away from the transmitter. Here's a foot away from the lav mic, and now I'm 3 feet away from the lav mic. Now we'll go ahead and do a couple other real quick tests not in the studio. F this. Well, I'm outside right now to do a little bit of a distance test. Right now I'm using a 85mm, so it's pretty compressed, so I will actually be getting further away than it looks. So right now I'm probably about 10 feet away. I'm gonna start backing up, and I really hope I don't step in some cat shit. We have some neighborhood cats that always come into our backyard and shit, so cool. Now I'm about 25 feet away from the receiver. If I turn my back and my body covering it, how does that do? I'm about 40 feet from the receiver, and right now I'm about 60 feet away. I think I'm probably only going to be about 70 feet away in this backyard, but that's pretty good if it can that up. All right, chilling in the corner of my backyard, 70 feet away. How's it doing? Should I speed this up in post to make it look like I'm actually running? All right, well, there's your distance test. Hopefully it performed all right. I'm sure I had some notes on the screen for you, but there you go. Here's a quick wind rejection test. Here's just a real quick test using the iPhone 12 Pro. I'm using the TRRS, the red cable that's included, and then I'm just very simply using a 3.5mm to Lightning adapter. And actually I am using the native Apple Video app. Now it's time for a kitty purr test. Well, now that we've gone through all those different tests, now let's go ahead and jump into a real quick comparison. Now, in this quick comparison, there's essentially going to be 6 microphones. 3 that are each built into the transmitters on the Lark150, Rode Wireless Go, and the MoveLink M2. And then the next 3 would be the lav mics included with those systems. However, there's a little bit of an issue with that. With the Rode Wireless Go, it doesn't come with a lavalier microphone. However, I do have the Rode Lav Go, and it may seem a little bit unfair because that lav is like $80 on its own. But once I reveal which mic is which, just put that into perspective that setup would be a decent amount more expensive. But you've been listening to a real quick palate cleanser microphone while I explain this, so now we're good to just go ahead and jump into this blind comparison. Just so this comparison is completely fair, I do have each of these microphones mounted in the exact same position toward the center of my chest. Here's the first microphone in this comparison, microphone A. Here's the sound of the second microphone in this blind comparison, microphone B. Here's the sound of the third microphone in this comparison, microphone C. Here is the sound of the fourth microphone in this blind comparison, microphone D. Here is the fifth microphone in this comparison, microphone E. Here's the sound of the sixth microphone in this comparison, microphone F. Once again, here is microphone A as in alpha astronaut attached an ass to their knot. Once again, here is microphone C as in colonial cosplay cutie. Once again, this is microphone E as in educationally erotic earwax. Once again, here is the sound of microphone B as in baloney basket brings butt burn. Once again, here is the sound of microphone D as in Dear Donald, duck you. Sorry, autocorrect. Once again, here is microphone F as in fun fungus featuring fickle friends. Here is the colonial cosplay cutie microphone, microphone C. Here is the educationally erotic earwax microphone, microphone E. Here is the alpha astronaut attached an ass to their knot microphone, microphone A. Here is the Dear Donald, duck you microphone, microphone D. Here is the baloney basket brings butt burn microphone, microphone B. Here is the fun fungus featuring fickle friends microphone, microphone F. Are you ready for the big reveal? You got your popcorn frickin' popped? Huh? You ready? Let's do it. In this blind comparison, microphone A was the Rode Wireless Go transmitter, microphone B was the Godox transmitter, microphone C was the Hollyland transmitter, and then in perfect order of brand yet again, microphone D was the Rode Lav Go, microphone E was the Godox Lav, and microphone F was the Hollyland Lav. Well, now that we've gone through the basics, the accessories, the features, the specs, we tested it out, we did a comparison, we did all the stuffs and all of the things. But now that all of that is out of the way and that I've listened to this microphone an absolute ton, I am ready to give you my review of the Godox MoveLink M2. Hold on a minute. Future Bronson here, and there are a couple things that I need to add to this review section before I go any further. I thought I was ready to give my review, but Rode had different plans. I mentioned the Rode Wireless Go, and the comparison that I did mentions the Rode Wireless Go. But while I was editing this video, Rode came out with the Rode Wireless Go 2 single. It's $200, and it's essentially the same as the Rode Wireless Go 2, but it only has one transmitter. So when I mentioned the Rode Wireless Go kind of later in this review section, just realize that there is a newer version that was the same price as the old one. But this newer version has the internal recording capabilities like the Rode Wireless Go 2 does, which is fantastic. And I'm just going to blatantly say right now, if you want internal recording and you only need one transmitter and you're going to spend $200, go with the Rode Wireless Go 2 single. It might not come with as many accessories as this and cables and everything, or a charging case, but the internal recording capability, or even just using that as a backup recording, is so invaluable. However, if your budget is $200 and you do not care about internal recording, and you absolutely need 2 transmitters, then the Godox is a great choice. But I just wanted to come in here and mention the Rode Wireless Go 2 single, just so this review wasn't immediately irrelevant. And in the review section that I will play here in a second, I didn't initially want to talk too much about the comparison, since audio and sound is subjective and people have different opinions and like different things. Because of that, I don't usually like to state my opinion too much when it comes to the comparisons I do. I just do them for you, so you can find a sound that you like. But just to briefly summarize a couple notes that I took while I was listening to the comparison, I did notice that the Rode has the more balanced sound. And I will say that the Rode Wireless Go 2 and the Go 2 single maybe even bump up the sound a little bit more. It sounds a little bit better. And the one thing I will say about the Godox microphones across the board is that they are definitely more mid-focused. I'm not too insanely crazy about the sound of the provided lav. However, I do think this transmitter sounds good. But it's definitely something you could work with in post if you're willing to do that. It does, however, seem like the Hollyland Lark150 had the highest noise floor out of all of them. And the mics that came with the Hollyland Lark150 were probably the most treble focused, which I do know that some people like, but at the same time they were also probably the thinnest sounding ones. I mentioned this later in the review section, but as it stands, I actually think that the Godox is a little bit stronger when it comes to price to performance than the Hollyland is. But I'll let past Bronson talk about that. Let's actually go ahead and just cut to that douchebag. Currently, I'm using a Ceramonic microphone, but I am using the transmitter from the Godox. And like I mentioned earlier, this is one way that I really do like using these wireless systems. When it does come to sound of all of these different wireless lav systems, I think that they're all passable. And that's the funny thing with microphone reviews that I do. Usually sound is absolutely king, and I do still believe that. But in this situation, I think that the specs and features, just the capabilities of this wireless system weigh in quite a bit more than usual. Because like I'm doing right now, I can plug a different microphone into this transmitter and get a signal to the receiver. You don't necessarily have to use the microphones that they're including, which makes reviewing this whole system even harder. So earlier when I was sitting by my beautiful cat Blue, and I made a little note because the noise floor got substantially louder, I figured out what that was, and it's honestly really weird. I've been having some weird little issues while using the line in on some of my external recorders with the MoveLink. In the previous section, I was actually using the Zoom H1. I had the same issue with the Zoom F1, and now here is yet another weird issue with the Zoom H5. I noticed that it doesn't go away no matter how far the receiver can be from it or the transmitter. It's always slightly there. However, it does get a little bit worse when the transmitter or receiver is really close to it. I mean, it sounds like interference. However, when I did interference tests with my phone, I didn't have any issues or anything. It's just been with my external recorders. So keep that in mind, and if you do have the MoveLink M2 system and you use an external recorder and it doesn't have this issue, definitely comment down below. But before I completely summarize this, I do want to go through some good and bad stuff about the MoveLink M2. When it comes to the price and the build quality and the accessories that you're getting, I do think it's a solid purchase. When it comes to the features and the functionality of this wireless setup, I think that it's actually really good. It pairs really fast, the boot up time is really good. Being able to switch between mono and stereo on the receiver and having some level gain control is great. I do, however, wish that it could go to -10 or -12 decibels on the receiver rather than just -5, when it can do +10 decibels on the opposite end. I think there's a little bit of a miss there, and I've actually had some issues with the audio being a little bit too hot with this wireless setup. Now, I talk pretty loud though, and a majority of people would probably like how hot it is, but it is just something to look out for. Now, one of the features that I am kind of torn on is the headphone jack on the receiver. I love that it has it, and it's great for just checking your level. But if you actually want to monitor your audio, good luck. The latency on that is enough to just be incredibly annoying, and especially if you're the person speaking, you're not going to be able to do it. There's no way. Now, I was very impressed by the battery life. It was amazing that it did actually almost last these 6 working hours that it says on the spec sheet. I'll put the actual number that it made it to up here. It's actually when just one of the transmitters died. The rest of them kept going, but I figure, hey, if you want to use this whole system and one dies, you're kind of out of luck. The other thing I'm not crazy about is the meter that's on the receiver as well as the transmitter. I mean, it doesn't show decibels as to like where your signal's actually hitting, and it doesn't even give an accurate representation. It's basically the equivalent of like a signal light. The meter is basically just like, I hear you, I hear you. It's not like, oh, you're a little quiet right now. Oh, now you're louder, now you're louder. It's just up and down pretty much. But it's kind of one of those things that I'm glad it's there, and I wouldn't want to take it away, but maybe there was a better way of doing it. Now I want to talk about just a couple things real quick before I give you my grade. Once I grabbed the Lark150 out of the closet to do this review, I've been having a lot of issues with that charging case. I've tried updating the firmware on the Lark150 several times just to get a failed error. The Godox charging case doesn't hold a charge of its own like the Hollyland Lark150, but I think that's the issue that I'm running into. It's been super frustrating, and it's actually made me like the fact that the Godox MoveLink M2 doesn't have a charging case, but it has the capability of charging each transmitter or the receiver on its own or in that little charging case. Go with the Godox or go with the Rode Wireless Go 2. Or if you only need one transmitter, go with the MoveLink M1 that only has one transmitter, or go with the Rode Wireless Go. With all that being said, the grade that I give the Godox MoveLink M2 is a B-. But thank you all for watching this review of the Godox MoveLink M2. I hope it helped you out, helped you decide whether you want to get one of these or not, but most of all, I hope you had fun. Stay tuned for a lot more reviews, comparisons, maybe some live streams coming up, maybe some Q&As, you know, some fun little stuff. A big thank you to everyone that's a member of the audio hotline. I do truly appreciate your support. And another big thank you to everyone that subscribes and watches this channel. And also, thank you Godox for sending over the MoveLink M2. Once again, thank you all for watching the audio hotline. I'll see you audio nerds next time.